FPL Game Week 36, my team selection. In today's video, we're going to have a look at how my team is lining up for the upcoming week. We are looking at a potential -8. We might also roll my transfer as well. I still have the bench boost chip to play, which I think I'm about 75% likely I will be playing this week. There is so much to cover from -8 to rolling transfers to chip strategy and all of that. So let's dive in and have a look at my team selection for Game Week 36 and where I might put the captaincy armband as well. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim. Subscribe if you are new around here as well. And we're going to start a quick review of Game Week 35. Unfortunately, it was a red arrow for me. I made one transfer. I brought in Brian and Burmo at home to Manchester United. I did sell Phil Foden, who didn't start, and Burmo got an assist. He came away with 10 points. In theory, it was okay because my vice-captain was on Marmoush, but in theory, Alexander Isak would have been a better option. Outside of that, there just really wasn't very much. Gvardiol with an 8, Konza with a 6, everyone else blanked. We could have had returns from Rodgers. Sarr created something as well. Mateta was very disappointing. Munoz was on for some points, but then got booked and conceded straight away. And David Raya in the Arsenal defence continued to absolutely fall apart. I should have, in theory, started Bukayo Saka. I didn't expect him to play as many minutes, but he didn't punish me. And now they're out of the Champions League. It doesn't feel quite as bad having him at the moment, but Williams on my bench did pick up an assist, wiping out the Munoz clean sheet, which did not feel great. So I got 6 below my safety score. Again, the safety score is the score I need in order to get a green arrow. So I was 6 points off a green arrow. I moved from just inside the top 6k to just inside the top 7k. And yes, those of you laughing in the back, that is actually my official rank on the FPL website. 2,433 points overall. I am now, with 3 weeks left of the season, 10 points inside the top 10k, and that is my aim now. People have asked, Harry, do you think you can get top 5k? I'm really not focused on that now. I'm focused on keeping myself inside the top 10k as best I can. Of course, I have the bench boost, which I think only about 25% of people left still have a chip left to play. It might be upwards of about 30, but still only 1 in 3 players have a chip left to play. So I have that benefit to me, but I think it's fair to say my team doesn't look quite as good as some other people's at the moment. And so looking at potential plans for me this week, I have 3 plans and they're ranked probably, the third option is definitely the least likely. So in both plans 2 and plans 3, that would involve either rolling my transfer or using my 1 free transfer on Mateta to Wissa. Now, I'm recording before the Spurs game tonight, and I do want to see how Spurs get on against Bodo Glimt, because if Spurs look really, really tired and we think they're going to massively rotate against Crystal Palace, I don't think necessarily selling Mateta is that worthwhile, because Spurs will rotate and we expect Mateta to do okay. Probably Wissa is probably a better fixture and a better option away at Ipswich, even if Crystal Palace do go and put some goals past a rotated Spurs team. But if Spurs do look really leggy tonight, then I'm not sure it's quite as essential. But in both of those, I could roll. I could roll my transfer completely and play the bench boost this week. My bench is currently Areola, Rodgers, Konsa, and Munoz. Benching Munoz against that Spurs team doesn't feel great, full stop. The other 3, if Rodgers could get something or Konsa or Areola could just get a return out of nowhere, that would be great. But I think I'd be really relying on Munoz or relying on Rodgers as well, which is okay. Or I could do the same, but just move the bench boost to next week, take 1 or 2 transfers into game week 37. I would be bench boosting with someone like Rodgers and Konza again at home to Spurs. I then would have Forest defenders away at West Ham. And then, of course, I would have Areola again at home to Nottingham Forest. I am going off plan 3 quite a lot, purely based off one player in my lineup, and that is Areola. I've said it quite a lot. I expect Fabianski to get a start, at least one, between now and the end of the season. Game week 37 is West Ham's final home game. He is out of contract in the summer, and although might not feel enough, I do think West Ham's would like to see him get some minutes before he probably leaves the club, given he has been a pretty good servant to them over the years. So I expect him to start. Game week 37 is their final home game. Game week 38 is their final game, full stop. Game week 38 also doesn't feel great to me, because I've got triple Crystal Palace at the moment, got double Forest defence against Chelsea. In theory, I've got clashes elsewhere in my team, like we've got Aston Villa going away to Manchester United, which could be okay, but it doesn't feel any better to wait for game week 38 than to do it this week, for example. In theory, my game week 37 bench looks maybe very, very marginally better without any transfers than it does this week. but I think that comes with a big risk that we might not get an Areola start in game week 37, and I don't think I want to run that risk. So I'd say I'm about 75% chance that I will just go for plan 1 or 2 and just bench boost this week. But let's talk about the -8. If you follow me on Twitter or on Instagram, you will have seen this mentioned. You will have seen me discuss this, and a lot of it comes around the FOMO of Kevin De Bruyne. It didn't help when the official account started posting the amount of transfers in that both De Bruyne and Wissa have had over the past week going into game week 36. And it does put a lot of fear in me, given how much of a rank threat they could be when I'm trying to hold on to the top 10k. A -8 point hit would drop me from about 7k to about 9k. So I would still be just inside the top 10k, but effectively I'd be 9k with a bench boost active that would look slightly better and a starting 11 that I think would look really strong and hopefully be able to carry me between now and the end of the season. So that -8 would be Mateta down to Wissa, so the same transfer that we've discussed in plan 2 and plan 3. It would be Rodgers up to Kevin De Bruyne. Unfortunately, in order to do those 2 transfers, I need a third transfer to free up the money, and that would probably be selling David Raya down to Flecken, I think is the most likely. Ipswich away, Fulham at home, Wolves away in the final 3 games for Brentford, and they potentially are still fighting for Europa Conference League football if they do finish 8th in the Premier League. In theory, I could do something else, like I could do Mateta down to Evan Nielsen, and I wouldn't have to sell David Raya. In theory, I could keep David Raya, and I could do Konza to Agbadu as the third transfer to free up a bit of money and keep David Raya in there as well. But Rodgers and Mateta would almost certainly be the 2 that would go, plus a third transfer. The only other thing to mention is, in theory, I could keep Mateta if before the deadline we saw that Marmoush was going to be benched, and let's say Haaland was starting instead of him, and instead of Mateta, basically the same price as Marmoush, I could do just those transfers. So I understand I'm going to see it in the comments straight away that it's going to say, Harry, there's no way you're taking a -8. I've only taken hits in 1 week so far this season. I'm not exactly sure what week it was, but I also took a -8 that week. I do feel, and I've said it in my videos and on my streams over the past few weeks, that I constantly feel that my team is slightly behind what I'm seeing with a lot of other people. I'm constantly putting out a lineup that's worse just a little bit than other people. I know I've got my bench boost, but I'm getting red arrows just because my team is just one player worse. Now, it could be Saka for me, but this week it doesn't feel great because Saka does go away to Liverpool, whereas other people have got someone like a Kevin De Bruyne who looks like is going to be very popular this week. So, listen, I get that people won't like it, and I'm probably only 40% chance that I do that and maybe 60% chance that I do option 2, but I do think there is something in it. Like, I want Wissa in for Mateta long term. In theory, it could be Mateus Cunha as well, who I do quite like, but Wissa will be the more highly owned. It's probably the safer route to go. Raya down to Flecken. Raya has Liverpool away and Newcastle at home in the next 2. Don't particularly expect them to keep a clean sheet in either of those. And then I can buy an Arsenal defender into my team in game week 38. And then it is just to do Rodgers up to De Bruyne. And people like Rodgers more than I like Rodgers. I think he's a perfect first sub in our teams. He actually did really well in terms of underlying data in game week 35, but was unlucky not to come away with something. Maybe if he'd got a return, I'd be less inclined to look to take a -8 to upgrade him to Kevin De Bruyne. But I just can't look past De Bruyne away at Southampton, at home to Bournemouth, away to Fulham. And now I know some people will say, Harry, he might not start all of those games. Southampton away is the game at the deadline in game week 36. So we got team news before the deadline in game week 35 on De Bruyne. Hopefully we get that again. Game week 36 is their final home game of the season. It is home to Bournemouth. It is a few days after the FA Cup final, but it is their final home game at home to Bournemouth. And Fulham away on the final day of the season is his final game in a Manchester City shirt, and they probably would have sewn up top 5 by then anyway. So I do think Southampton away comes with the biggest risk that he doesn't start this game. In theory, hopefully, we're going to hear before the deadline. If we don't hear confirmation before the deadline, I'm then in a really difficult position because I'm not sure I can justify taking a -8 for him, although he's going to be in every predicted lineup, and it seems very, very unlikely that he's not going to start. But in theory, it comes with a little bit of risk. So I did have bench boost 37 in mind for the long term, but I do think now, particularly because I've got double Nottingham Forest defence, and it means I'm benching Munoz as a result, which I don't like. The bench boost 36 probably feels better, and that -8 I just can't get out of my head, despite how other people might think about it. So because I've still got stuff to decide, we're actually just going to load up my whole team and just go and take a look at it at the moment without the bench boost active. So David Raya versus Areola in goal, just because I'm okay with Raya. I don't think Areola keeps a clean sheet at the moment either. I'm starting Raya with Areola on the bench. But again, I think it's very unlikely I play my bench boost. Into defense, Gvardiol, Milenkovic, Williams have to start because of the fixtures they've got, which does mean I'm benching Munoz away at Spurs. And again, let's see how Spurs get on Thursday evening after time of recording. It's one I'm keeping an eye on. I do expect Spurs to rotate against that Spurs side, so benching Munoz doesn't feel great. Then into the midfield. We've also got Konza on the bench away at Bournemouth. I don't expect much from him at all. I actually think Villa might lose that game. I think Bournemouth are a great side, particularly at home, and they, like Brentford, are still fighting for Conference League 8th place. So I don't expect much from Konza. Into midfield. So Sarr away at Spurs, he's been disappointing, but he put up over 1 expected goal involvement against Nottingham Forest on Monday night. I'm absolutely fine to hold him for this game, and this will probably be his last game in my lineup for me. We've got Salah and Saka playing against each other, but with Arsenal going out of the Champions League, I expect Saka to play all of the games between now and the end of the season, and I quite like him as a bit of a differential, and I actually think next week in 38 in particular with Southampton, people will start to look to buy him, I think. So the thing is, if I was to do the Rodgers to Kevin De Bruyne move as part of the -8, I would build myself a midfield, which is De Bruyne and Burmo, Salah, Saka for the final 4 weeks, which suddenly looks really, really strong. And I really, really like it for the final 3 weeks of the season. I think it's really strong midfield that I probably wouldn't need to touch. Gvardiol in defence, you've got Munoz in there as well, Forest and Aston Villa. I feel like I'm suddenly in a place where it suddenly starts to look reasonably strong. And I don't mind that at all. So I am really considering the -8. I would say it's slightly less likely at the moment, probably 40%, 60%. I roll my transfer / doing Mateta to Wissa with my 1 free transfer. Rodgers is the one on the bench. Pretty happy to bench him. To me, Sarr versus Rodgers, some of you have asked me this. It feels like a really straightforward decision. Bournemouth are a great team. Spurs are definitely not, particularly after they play away in the Europa League on a Thursday night. And up front is Marmoush, Mateta, Isak, the most popular front line in FPL at the moment. Isak, I think I'm just going to hold Isak for the final few weeks. He's very highly owned, and I don't see enough people jumping off him between now and the end of the season to make it worthwhile me taking a hit to sell him, because I think I've got enough other stuff that I need to sort out before I start thinking about selling Isak. In theory, I could do it this week, like Isak to Wissa and Rodgers up to someone like De Bruyne is something that I could afford, and I have thought about that, and maybe it's something I should consider a little bit more, but I don't really think I want to sell Isak when I'm trying to play very safe at the moment. So, listen, I would say at the moment, as I said, I'm 80% chance I play my bench boost. I think it's very likely. I would say 60% chance I roll or just do the Mateta to Wissa move, depending on what happens on Spurs on Thursday night. And then 40% I take the -8. I've just seen those transfers in for Wissa. I've seen those transfers in for Kevin De Bruyne. And I just think that has a real issue that it could put a spanner in the works. Now, I don't think in theory it would change my bench that I'd bench Sarr. So my bench boost would be Sarr and Munoz against Spurs, Konta and Areola. I would be taking a -8. So as long as that bench maybe got 1 return and broke 10 points, which I would hope it would do with double Palace away at Spurs, maybe Areola gets a save point or something. As long as it gets 8 points in theory and it paid off the -8, and then the rest of it I can just move from where I am now effectively and try and push on for the final few weeks with a team that I hope would look much better. And, we'd have those midfield 4 that I've spoken about of De Bruyne, Salah and Burmo, Saka, like Wissa, Marmoush, Isak front 3. I wonder how wrong I could go with the -8. But is it just the sensible thing to do to just roll the transfer or buy Wissa, play the bench boost and see where we are with 2 weeks to go and hope that the bench boost in itself, instead of covering the -8, that maybe the bench boost can just cover Wissa and De Bruyne and we can look at it that way. So at the moment, I haven't put the -8 in the graphic because I understand people will think that I'm doing it and people say I'm doing it just for, the views and stuff like that. But when I get a -8, a big hit that I think really boosts my team in my mind, I do find it difficult to shake it, as I did with the -8 earlier on in the season. It doesn't happen often. It happens very rarely. I'm a very risk-averse, safe manager, but there is part of me that thinks it. The other thing is taking a -8 with 3 weeks left. I always say hits are good when you're, having a long time to pay it off. And this doesn't give me that opportunity. I need the payback pretty quickly. But if I told you simply that Kevin De Bruyne outscored Rodgers by 4 points between now and the end of the season, you'd probably say, yeah, that's a reasonable assumption. So if that was enough, then I probably would consider doing it because I think it could be more than 4 points. And you never know what Wissa could do over that time period as well. So with that all in mind, the final thing is the captaincy. I think Brian and Burmo and Kevin De Bruyne are the clear captaincy options for me this week. Marmoush has my vice captain at the moment, but with his positioning, with his involvement in that Manchester City team recently, there's no chance he gets the armband over in Burmo. And if I go and buy Kevin De Bruyne, it will be De Bruyne vice and Burmo captain, or the other way around. I do think Burmo is probably the one I'll end up with because his record against the promoted or relegation sides is very, very good. So Mburmo is likely to get it at the moment. Marmoush vice or De Bruyne vice if I end up with him. I do like Mateus Cunha, and if you're chasing rank, going Cunha over Wissa feels like the most easy differential that you could do. Captaining De Bruyne over Mburmo is an easy differential you can do, but I'm not sure at this point of the season that's what I'm needing to be looking for. But I do have a feeling that Cunha could do really well. Brighton are shipping chances. Then it's Palace after the FA Cup final, and then it is Brentford at home on the final day. So the plan probably is maybe Mateta to Wissa or roll, then play the bench boost this week. I might end up taking the -8. I will be leaving all of my transfers to go until the deadline stream. Manchester City are one of the early kickoffs. In theory, so are Brentford as well. So you might get news on anything like that. There's no reason with 3 weeks left. Price changes are all out of the window. Information is so much more important. There are no need for any early transfers. So we'll be back with a video on Friday afternoon, evening of the complete guide, where I'll, of course, have an update after the Spurs game has taken place. I'll record that tomorrow morning, tomorrow lunchtime. Then it is a lunchtime deadline on Saturday, again, where hopefully we get some news. And if De Bruyne does start and we get that confirmation, I think it's going to be pretty difficult for me to ignore him for the final 3 weeks at Man City. Anyway, that is all. Planned bench boost this week, not fully confirmed. Potential -8, not confirmed. Let's see where we are once the deadline does roll around. Thank you all for watching. All the questions I've seen over the past couple of days, I haven't had massive time to reply to them, but I will hopefully answer everything in terms of chips, players to buy, what's worth a hit, everything like that in the complete guide video tomorrow. So I am taking notes, I promise. Thank you all for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim to subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll be back again very soon.